The silent colony Aurora 7 was a small human colony at the far edge of the galaxy. It was not rich, not powerful, and not important to the trade routes, but it was peaceful, and the people there believed the galaxy's wars would never touch them. Children played in the dusty streets between small silver houses. Farmers worked under the light of two suns, and in the evenings, families gathered to watch the twin moons rise. Life moved slowly, and no one thought much about danger. Then, one ordinary morning, the colony's long-range scanners picked up something strange, a cluster of signals far out in space. Moving fast, the local security officer, Captain Lauren, thought it was just a trade convoy. But within minutes, the signals multiplied 10, then 20, then 50 ships. They were coming straight toward Aurora 7. The colony sent a message to Earth. It was short and confused. Unknown ships approaching, no identification codes. But before Earth could respond, the signals vanished from the scanner. For a few minutes, everyone thought the danger had passed. Then the sky turned black. They came without warning. Massive alien warships dropped out of hyperspace. Their hulls were covered in sharp, jagged armor like the teeth of some deep-sea creature. No greetings. No demands, no warnings, only fire. The first blasts tore through the colony's shield generators. Explosions lit the horizon. Buildings crumbled under the shockwaves. Panic filled the streets. Captain Lauren tried to rally the defense forces, but their weapons were nothing compared to the enemy's. Fighter ships launched from the surface and were destroyed within seconds. Families ran toward the evacuation points. Shuttles overloaded and left without closing their doors. The alien ships did not care. They fired on anything that moved. In the chaos, one shuttle managed to break free into the black sky. Inside was a young pilot named Rin Vale. He had burns across his face, and his voice shook as he sent a final message back toward Earth. They came without warning. Everyone is gone. The shuttle's engine sputtered. It jumped into hyperspace, barely holding together. Behind him, Aurora 7 was nothing but fire and dust. 3 weeks later, Earth's deep space rescue crews found Rin's shuttle drifting near the outer system. Inside, Rin was half-conscious, dehydrated and badly injured. When the medics woke him, he repeated the same words again and again. They came without warning. Everyone is gone. Rin's story spread fast. The alien attackers were identified as the Foul Rock Dominion, a warlike species from the Dark Sector. They were known for conquering weaker planets and turning survivors into slaves. Until now, they had never dared to touch human space. Aurora 7 changed that on Earth. The news hit like a hammer. Families cried for the lives lost. Military leaders gathered in the War Council chamber deep under the capital city. No one spoke at first, then Admiral Carter, a veteran with steel gray eyes, broke the silence. This was not a random attack, he said. This was a test to see if humanity will fight back. The president looked around the table. Her voice was cold and sharp. They will learn the answer. For the first time in 100 years, Earth activated the Omega War Protocol. Across every human world, coded orders were sent. Every available ship was to return to Fleet Command. Every weapons factory would operate without pause. Every pilot, soldier, and engineer would prepare for war. In the great docks above Earth, massive warships began to wake. Engines hummed. Shields powered up. One by one, the fleet's tracking numbers appeared on the command screens. The count climbed higher and higher. By the end of the day, Earth's admirals knew the final number: 700,000 warships, the largest military force ever assembled by humanity. The galaxy had seen human fleets before, but never like this. This was not a defense force. This was a storm aimed at the Thalrock, and when it arrived, there would be no mercy. Far away, on a hidden Thalrock station, enemy commanders laughed. They believed humans were slow, divided, and cautious. They believed the destruction of Aurora 7 would frighten Earth into silence. They were wrong, because even now, in the heart of human space, war drums were beating, and 700,000 warships were preparing to move. When they did, the galaxy would never forget the name Aurora 7. Asterisk, the call to arms. The news of Aurora 7's destruction spread like wildfire through every human world. It was not just a tragedy, it was an insult to the pride of humanity. Across colonies, space stations, and orbital cities, people stopped what they were doing to listen. Every screen, every news broadcast, every channel carried the same grim headline: Aurora 7 lost Thal Rock. Attack confirmed. In the streets of New London on Mars, a group of miners stood together, their faces dark with anger. On the ocean platforms of Pacifica 4, shipbuilders threw aside their tools and demanded they be allowed to work on warships instead, even in the glittering towers of Earth's capital. Ordinary citizens sent in offers to serve. It did not matter if they were pilots, engineers, or cooks. Every hand was ready. The president addressed the entire human race from the War Council chamber. Her voice was steady, but her eyes burned with fury. "They came into our space," she said. "They slaughtered our people without reason, without mercy. They thought we would be afraid. They thought we would kneel. But they have made the gravest mistake in their history." Her words echoed across planets and moons. The people cheered, but it was not the cheer of celebration. It was the cheer of a people ready for war. At the great shipyards of Titan, enormous hulls were welded together under the glow of Saturn's rings. At the lunar base factories, weapon cores rolled off assembly lines faster than ever before. Cargo freighters were stripped and refitted with railguns, missile pods, and shield arrays. War was no longer coming. War was here, and every human knew it. Admiral Carter stood on the observation deck of the main fleet command. Below him, ships floated in perfect formation. Every day more arrived: heavy cruisers from the Orion Belt, frigates from the mining worlds of the Outer Rim, stealth destroyers from black-budget projects no one had ever admitted existed. It was a sight no human in history had ever seen: thousands of ships gathering in one place. And this was only the beginning. The Omega War Protocol demanded that all military ships return to Earth space. By the end of the first week, there were already 300,000. By the second week, 500,000. When the final tally came, the number was clear: 700,000 warships, the largest, deadliest armada humanity had ever built. Training grounds overflowed. Young pilots ran flight simulations day and night. Ground troops drilled in massive zero-gravity combat. Chambers, veterans who had retired decades ago, returned, saying they would not miss this fight. Even old war heroes, their hair white and their hands scarred, put on their uniforms once more. The Thal Rock Dominion had no idea what was coming. They believed humans fought like other species, slow, political, hesitant. They had never seen what humanity could do when united under one cause. And now, for the first time, every human world, every colony, every station stood together in a hidden hangar beneath the ice of Europa. Engineers worked on something special. Project Revenant, an experimental flagship designed to lead the fleet. It was 3 kilometers long, armored in layers of neutron-forged plating. Its main gun could split a moon in half, and at its heart was Helios Prime, the battle AI once banned for being too ruthless. Now it would be unleashed across the galaxy. Whispers began to spread. Merchants carried stories of human fleets massing in the Sol system. Pirates avoided human shipping lanes. Even alien governments that had once rivaled Earth sent cautious messages. They had heard the number 700,000 ships, and they believed it. Inside the War Council, final plans were drawn. Operation Retribution. The fleet would travel to the edge of Thal Rock space. It would strike without warning. It would hit so hard that the Thal Rock would never rise again in the darkness of off space. A lone beacon lit up, the signal to move out. War drums echoed across the stars, not in sound, but in the hum of engines powering up. The greatest fleet in human history was ready. Every soldier knew the mission. Every ship knew its target. The destruction of Aurora 7 would be answered, not with words, not with diplomacy, but with fire. Asterisk. Shadows in the void. The fleet was ready. 700,000 human warships hung in space like a wall of steel and fire. But before the great strike could begin, the War Council needed answers. They needed to know where the Thal Rock would hit next, and how deep their defenses ran. For this, they called upon the Ghost Squadrons. They were the eyes of the fleet, stealth pilots trained to vanish into the black, moving unseen through enemy space. If the main fleet was the sword, the ghosts were the whisper before the blade struck. Captain Mara Voss commanded Ghost Squadron 9. Her ship, the Silent Dagger, was built for one purpose: to go where no other could. It carried no bright lights, no heavy armor, only speed, stealth plating, and weapons hidden in the shadows. When the order came, Mara's squadron slipped away from the main fleet, their engines silent, their ships almost invisible against the stars. They crossed the border into Thal Rock space without a single alarm sounding. Days passed with nothing but the cold emptiness of space. Then the shadows began to move. Mara's sensors picked up faint energy pulses ahead, not random, not natural. These were controlled signals. She ordered her ships to drift with the cosmic dust to avoid detection. Slowly, the shapes came into view. It was a fortress, but not like anything humans had seen before. It was built around a dying star. Massive black towers reached out toward the burning red sun. Chains of steel and crystal connected them like a spider's web. And deep inside the structure, the star's energy was being drawn into something huge. Commander Rin, her second in command, whispered through the combs, "That's no fortress. That's a weapon." Mara's jaw tightened. She had heard rumors. A weapon that could collapse a sun, wiping out every planet in the system in seconds. And the Thal Rock were building it, while the Ghost Squadron watched. Dozens of alien warships entered and left the fortress. Some carried strange cargo massive pods that glowed with an eerie blue light. Others escorted large drilling machines toward the star's surface. The scale of the operation was beyond anything humans had imagined. Then came the real horror. Intercepted transmissions revealed the Thal Rock's next targets. Not just one human colony, but two, both scheduled for destruction within a month. If the fortress was completed, nothing could stop them from burning entire sectors, Mara sent. An urgent data burst back to the fleet. The message was clear. We found their heart. If we don't strike first, we lose everything. But the Thal Rock were not blind. Even as the Ghost Squadron prepared to leave, enemy sensors swept the sector. One of Mara's ships, the Black Thorn, was caught in the scan. Instantly, alarms echoed through the void. Thal Rock interceptors launched, their engines screaming blue fire. The Ghost Squadron scattered. Evasive maneuvers sent them twisting through asteroid fields and cosmic dust storms. Mara's Silent Dagger weaved between drifting rocks as laser fire carved glowing scars into the void. The Thal Rock ships were fast, but they lacked stealth. Mara used that to her advantage. One by one, her squadron disappeared into deep space, leaving no trace. When the Silent Dagger rejoined the fleet, the War Council wasted no time. The intelligence was confirmed. The fortress was the key. Destroy it, and the Thal Rock's power would crumble, fail, and the war would turn against humanity. In the war room, Admiral Carter traced a finger across the star map. "This is where the war truly begins," he said. "This fortress will fall, even if it costs us every ship we have." The order was signed. The operation had a name: Starfall, and every captain in the fleet knew what it meant. Far away, the Thal Rock War. Leader Krov Tal stood on the command deck of his flagship. The news of the Ghost Squadron's presence had reached him. He smiled, his teeth like shards of glass. "Let them come," he growled. "When they do, the star itself will be their grave." In the cold silence of the void, two forces prepared to collide, one driven by vengeance, the other by conquest, and in the middle, a dying star pulsed like the heartbeat of war. Asterisk. The first strike, the first human ship appeared above the Thal Rock fortress, like a ghost. No warning, no declaration, just the silent shimmer of a stealth field collapsing. A heartbeat later, 50,000 more ships tore out of hyperspace. The void lit up like dawn, and the first strike began. The Thal Rock were caught off guard. Their sensor alarms screamed. Docked warships scrambled to launch. But human railguns were already firing. Metal slugs traveling faster than thought punched. Through alien hulls, explosions rippled across the web-like chains that held the fortress to the dying star. Admiral Carter's voice boomed through every human channel. "No mercy. Target their weapons. Target their power cores. Bring them down." The sky around the fortress became chaos. Fighter swarms darted between capital ships. Missiles streaked across the void, leaving trails of burning plasma. Thal Rock dreadnoughts turned their massive guns toward the fleet. One blast from a fortress cannon vaporized an entire human destroyer. But the humans pressed forward. Captain Maravos and the Silent Dagger led the infiltration wing. Their mission was simple: get inside the fortress and plant demolition charges. But the closer they flew, the heavier the fire became. Laser beams sliced the darkness. Shockwaves from exploding ships slammed against their hulls. Still, they pushed through. On the fortress command deck, Krovtal roared orders to his crew. "Bring the star weapon online," he demanded. Technicians scrambled to channel more energy from the dying sun. If they could fire the weapon once, the human fleet would be nothing but ash. In the center of the battle, the Helios Prime flagship Project Revenant cut a path through the enemy. Its main gun fired a single shot that tore a Thal Rock battleship clean in half. The ice cold voice echoed over the comms. Enemy resistance at 73%. Projected collapse in 12 minutes. But 12 minutes in battle was an eternity. The Thal Rock began pulling ships from hidden hangars buried inside the fortress walls. Black needle-shaped interceptors poured out by the hundreds. They dove at the human lines, forcing cruisers and carriers to break formation. In the middle of it all, Marine drop pods streaked toward the fortress surface. Inside one of them, Sergeant Kell gripped his rifle. He could feel the vibrations of railgun fire through the pod's frame. When the pod hit, the doors blew open and the Marines stormed. Forward, alien defenders met them with blade weapons and plasma rifles. The air inside the fortress burned with heat and smoke. Back in space, Mara's Silent Dagger finally slipped through a breach in the fortress plating. They flew deep inside. The structure, weaving between giant beams of steel and crystal. The star's light pulsed all around them. It felt like flying inside the veins of some enormous creature. Her crew planted charges on key power nodes. If they detonated, the fortress would collapse in on itself. But before they could escape, Krovtal's voice thundered across every frequency. "You think you can destroy the heart of the Dominion? You will burn with it." The fortress weapon's core began to glow. The dying star screamed with energy. Sensors on every human ship spiked into the red. Helios Prime calculated the blast radius it would wipe out half the fleet. Admiral Carter gave the order no one wanted to hear. "All ships, prepare for emergency retreat vectors. We can't hold position if the weapon fires." But one voice cut through the chaos. It was Captain Rin Vale, the same survivor from Aurora 7 now commanding a small strike cruiser. "Admiral, I can take the shot." Before Carter could refuse, Rin's ship broke formation and dove straight toward the glowing core. Weapons firing, shields overloading, engines burning past safe limits. The Thal Rock tried to intercept. Interceptors swarmed, firing wildly, but Rin's cruiser plowed through them. shattering hulls and cutting down fighters with bursts of plasma. Closer, closer until the core filled the entire view. The last thing anyone saw was a flash brighter than the sun. The fortress shuddered. Sections of its web tore apart. Energy feedback raced through its systems like fire through dry grass. Then came the explosion, a chain reaction whipping through every tower. Every chain, every weapon mount, the fortress began to fall into the dying star. Human ships pulled back as debris rained into the void. The Thalrock fleet broke apart in panic, and for the first time, the Dominion felt fear. The first strike had cost lives, but it had shown the galaxy something it would never forget. When humanity came for revenge, nothing could stand in their way. Fire and fury. The wreck of the Thalrock fortress still burned in the light of the dying star. Shattered towers drifted through space, like the bones of a fallen giant. Human ships moved among the wreckage, searching for survivors and collecting what they could. For a moment, there was silence. It was the silence after a storm. But far beyond the ruins, something massive was waking. The first Titan-class dreadnought emerged from the shadow of a black moon. It was so large that even human battleships looked like insects beside it. Its hull was plated with obsidian armor that shimmered like oil under starlight. Weapons, the size of city towers, bristled from every side. Its engines burned with a cold blue fire. And as it moved, the void itself seemed to bend around it. A second Titan followed, then a third. In minutes, 12 of the monsters formed a wall across the sector. Each carried enough firepower to destroy an entire fleet. And now, all of them were turning toward the human armada. Admiral Carter stood on the command deck of the Helios Prime flagship. He watched the massive ships through the view screen. Titans, he said quietly. His voice carried the weight of history. In every recorded war, a single Titan had been enough to break an enemy's spirit. No one had ever faced 12 at once. The first shot came from the lead Titan. A beam of concentrated plasma cut through space and struck a human cruiser. The ship didn't explode. It simply vanished into molten fragments. Seconds later, more beams lanced out. 5 ships were gone before they could even return fire. But the humans did fire back. Railguns roared. Missiles screamed through the dark. Fighter wings darted between the Titans, targeting their engines. And shield emitters, every hit shook the massive ships. But none fell. The Titans were slow, but their armor was like the shell of a god. Then the Helios Prime spoke. Analysis complete. Weakness detected in spinal armor segments. Recommend coordinated strike. Within seconds, orders spread through the fleet. Dozens of ships lined up for a synchronized railgun barrage. When the signal came, they fired together. The void lit up with a single blinding flash. 1 Titan's central armor cracked open like glass. Human fighters swarmed the gap, firing torpedoes into the wound. Explosions rippled along its spine until the giant finally broke apart. Its burning carcass drifted away. 1 down, 11 to go. But the Thalrock answered with fury. A Titan unleashed a wave of micro-missiles that spread like a storm of fireflies. Each missile locked onto a target. Dozens of human ships vanished in blossoms of flame. The battle became chaos. Ships collided. Debris spun in all directions. The sky was a storm of light and death. In the middle of the carnage, Captain Maravos led a strike team of stealth frigates. They slipped through the crossfire, weaving between the Titan's massive gun batteries. Their mission plant nova charges on the Titan's reactor vents. The closer they got, the more. The Titan's escorts closed in. Dogfights erupted in every direction. But one by one, Mara's frigates reached their targets. The first nova charge detonated. A Titan's entire rear section blew apart in a flash that lit the battlefield. The explosion shook the others. Suddenly, the Thalrock line wasn't unbreakable anymore. Admiral Carter seized the moment. All ships, press forward, break there. Line, push them back to their own space. The fleet surged. Frigates darted ahead. Cruisers poured in covering fire. Even damaged ships threw themselves into the fight. No one was holding back now. The Thalrock began to retreat. The remaining Titans turned, firing as they fell back toward the Black Moon. They had not expected humanity to stand against them, let alone destroy two of their giants. The retreat wasn't victory yet, but it was the first time in history that Titans had been forced to run. In the war room aboard the Helios Prime, the mood was not celebration, but grim focus. Admiral Carter knew the truth. This battle had been brutal, but it wasn't the end. The Thalrock would strike again, harder, faster, and with something worse than Titans. And when they did, humanity would need to be ready. Far away, in the deepest vault of Thalrock space, their engineers worked in silence. They were building something even the Titans feared, something that could end the war in a single blow. And somewhere in the shadows, a spy had already sent word back to Earth. The next battle would decide everything. Asterisk, the heart of the enemy. The silent dagger slid out of hyperspace into total darkness. No stars. No planets, only the black. This was deep inside Thalrock space. A region so secret it didn't appear on any navigational chart. And somewhere ahead, hidden in that darkness, was the most dangerous target of the war. Captain Mara Voss sat in the command chair. Her voice was calm, but her heart pounded. "Maintain stealth, no emissions," she ordered. Every light on the yacht adored. Ship was dimmed. Even the crew's voices were little more than whispers. They were ghosts in enemy territory, and a single mistake would mean death. Through the forward viewport, the black began to shift. Slowly, shapes emerged, a cluster of massive structures hanging in space. Each one was covered in dark plating, shaped like claws reaching toward a faint, dying star. This was no ordinary fortress. It was the core citadel, the command heart of the Thalrock Dominion. From here, every battle order was given, every invasion planned, every weapon unleashed. But as the silent dagger drifted closer, Mara saw something that froze her. A massive sphere in the center of the citadel pulsed with a sickly golden light. Her sensors whispered the truth. This was the Starbreaker, the weapon designed to collapse suns. If the Thalrock finished it, they could erase entire systems with a single shot. Her comms officer looked up, eyes wide. "Captain." "It's charging." Mara's jaw tightened. They had expected weeks before the weapon was ready. They were wrong. It was almost at full power. And its first target was already locked. The Sol system. There was no time to wait for the main fleet. Mara keyed the secure channel to Admiral Carter. "Admiral, this is Voss. We found the Citadel. Starbreaker is live, targeting Earth. We are initiating Operation Starfall now." The Admiral's reply was immediate. "Understood. You have full authority. Do whatever it takes." Mara turned to her crew. "We don't leave until that weapon is gone." The silent dagger's engines whispered to life. They threaded their way between enemy patrol routes. Every move had to be perfect. One wrong turn, and the Citadel's defenses would crush them. Inside the Citadel, the Thalrock worked without pause. Engineers in bone-white armor moved along bridges suspended over the weapon's glowing core. Alien commanders barked orders from spire-like control towers. They had no idea that death was already inside their walls. Mara's strike team prepared. In the launch bay, black armor, silenced rifles, demolition packs strapped across their chests. They knew the plan: get inside the core chamber, plant the charges, and escape before detonation. But as the silent dagger slipped into a hidden docking bay on the Citadel's underside, the danger doubled. The air was heavy and smelled of scorched metal. Every shadow could be a patrol, every corridor a trap. The team moved fast. They bypassed security nodes, silenced guards before alarms could sound. Step by step, they reached the core chamber, and when they saw it, they froze. The Starbreakers. Core was the size of a city, a sphere of pure energy held in place by massive curved arms. It pulsed like a beating heart. The hum of its power shook the floor under their boots. Mara signaled the team. Charges were set along the main stabilizers, each one enough to shatter a building. Together, they could bring the entire weapon down. But just as the last charge was armed, the chamber doors exploded inward. Thalrock shock troops poured in, blades flashed, plasma bolts seared the air. The humans fought back in the narrow walkways. Grenades rattled the catwalks, sending alien bodies tumbling into the energy abyss below. On the silent dagger, the comms officer's voice cracked. "Captain, more enemy reinforcements inbound." "We're out of time." Mara's eyes locked on the glowing core. If they stayed, they'd die. If they left, Earth would. She keyed her comm. "This is Voss. To all units detonate on my mark." Her hand hovered over the trigger, but before she could press it, a voice roared across the chamber. It was Krav Tal himself, towering above the fight. "You will not destroy the heart of my people. You will kneel before it." Mara's reply was ice. "No, we'll burn it," she hit. The trigger. The charges lit the core chamber in blinding white. The shockwave ripped through the citadel, tearing its spires apart. The Starbreaker's light flared, then collapsed inward, a dying sun devouring itself. The silent dagger blasted away from the station, engines screaming. Behind them, the core. Citadel vanished in a star-bright explosion, and with it, the Thalrock's greatest weapon was gone. But the war wasn't over. Not yet, because Krav Tal had escaped, and he would not run forever. Asterisk. Retribution, the Thalrock homeworld, hung in space like a black jewel. Its surface was a maze of jagged mountains, deep red oceans, and fortress cities that pierced the clouds. From orbit, it looked unshakable. For centuries, no enemy had even dared to approach. But now, the unthinkable had happened. 700,000 human warships filled the sky above it. They came not in silence, but in a storm of engine fire. Formations stretched from horizon to horizon. The void shimmered with the heat of their shields. It was not an invasion. It was a reckoning. On the bridge of the Helios Prime, Admiral Carter stood with his hands clasped behind his back. "This is the end of the Dominion," he said, his voice steady. "No retreat, no surrender, no survivors." Across the fleet, soldiers checked weapons. Pilots gripped controls. Every man and woman in the Armada knew why they were here. Aurora Sevens. Ashes still called for justice. The ghosts of every colony the Thalrock had burned whispered through the stars. And humanity had come to answer them. The first strike came from the Revenant. Its main cannon lit up the darkness. The beam tore through the largest Thalrock orbital station in a single shot. Fragments rained down into the atmosphere. Then, the rest of the fleet opened fire. The sky over the Thalrock homeworld became a sea of fire. Missiles screamed downward. Railgun rounds shattered city-sized bunkers. Fighter wings roared through the upper atmosphere, cutting down enemy interceptors before they could climb. On the ground, shockwaves rolled through the fortress cities. Towers crumbled, shipyards exploded, and defensive cannons were ripped from their mounts. But the Thalrock did not kneel. From hidden vaults beneath the mountains, they unleashed their last war machines, colossal walkers with armor thicker than starship hulls. They climbed out of the ground like monsters from a nightmare. Their weapons spat rivers of plasma. Human dropships fell in flames, but more took their place. Captain Mara Voss led the ground strike. Her armored unit crashed through the outer gates of the capital citadel. Inside, the air stank of burning metal and alien blood. Corridors shook with every explosion. Her team cut through resistance, step by step, toward the throne chamber, and there, waiting for her, was Krav Tal. His armor gleamed like obsidian. His blade was longer than she was tall. Around him, the last of his elite guards formed a wall. "You burned my fortress," he growled. "You killed my titans. But here, human, here you will die. Mara raised her rifle. No, here, you answer for Aurora 7. The fight was brutal. Guards fell, one after another. Krovtal's blade tore through steel and flesh alike, but Mara was faster. Every move was fueled by the memory of burning colonies, the screams of her people, and when the moment came, she drove her blade through his chest. Krovtal fell to his knees. He tried to speak, but only blood filled his mouth. This is not the end, he gasped. Mara stepped back. It is for you, outside. The Helios Prime received the signal. The capital had fallen. Admiral Carter gave the final order. All ships full strike burned the Dominion from the map. The fleet descended. Orbital fire rained down without pause. Mountains split, oceans boiled, cities turned to glass. When the smoke cleared, there was nothing left of the Thalrock homeworld, but a scorched shell drifting in the dark. Humanity had won. The war was over, but the cost was written in the names of every ship that didn't return. Every soldier who didn't see the victory. On Earth, memorials rose for the fallen. Aurora 7 was rebuilt, its first sunrise watched in silence by the survivors. In the War Council chamber, the President spoke to the galaxy. Let this be known. She said, no one takes from humanity without paying the price. No one burns our worlds without facing our wrath. We are peaceful when left in peace. But when you bring us war, you will not survive it. Far away, in the quiet corners of space, alien empires heard those words, and none dared to test them. For the galaxy had learned a truth it would never forget. When humans came for retribution, they did not stop until the stars themselves remembered. Asterisk.